If you watched the early seasons of Adventure Time, you probably thought the Ice King was just a massive joke.
1, 2, 3. Gunter, why did you goont my fries? I goonted them, and they were mine. What kind of goons is Gunter's fries?
I mean, look at him. He's this weird, pathetic old guy who constantly tries to kidnap princesses and gets beaten up by a 12-year-old kid and a magic dog. He's more of a joke than a king. For a long time, we all just accepted that this was his entire character. He was just the annoying old wizard. But what if I told you that this goofy, cartoonish villain is actually hiding the darkest, most heartbreaking backstory in the history of television? And that his obsession with kidnapping princesses isn't just some creepy running gag. It's actually a twisted, tragic echo of a promise he made over 1,000 years ago. Keep that specific detail in mind, because when you realize why he actually does it, it's going to completely change the way you watch this show. Act 1. Man Made Madman. To understand the Ice King, we have to go back to a time long before the Mushroom War, before the magic, before the talking dogs, and before the candy people. Back then, he was just a normal guy named Simon Petrikov. He wasn't a wizard or a king. He was a brilliant, nerdy antiquarian who spent his days collecting rare historical artifacts. And more importantly, he had a fiancée named Betty. He loved her more than anything in the world. In fact, he loved her so much that his affectionate nickname for her was his princess. Remember how I told you his obsession with princesses would make sense later? Yeah, that's where it starts. Things were completely normal for Simon, until the day he bought a weird, jewel-encrusted crown. He brought it home, and as a joke, just to make Betty laugh, he put it on his head. But it wasn't funny.
Where's my Betty? Where's my princess? Princess! Princess!
When the crown touched his head, it flooded his mind with horrific visions and ancient voices. He completely lost control of his own body. When he finally snapped out of it and took the crown off, he had no idea what he had said or done. But whatever it was enough to make the love of his life run out the door and never come back. Act 2. Curse of the Crown. Now, at first glance, you might think the crown is just generically cursed. But the truth is actually way more messed up than that. To understand what is happening to Simon's brain, we have to look at where the crown actually came from. Millions of years ago, back in the dinosaur age, there was an ice elemental named Urgence Evergreen. He created the crown to stop a cataclysmic comet from destroying the Earth. The crown's magic was designed to do one specific thing: grant the deepest, truest wish of its first wearer. But Evergreen didn't get to wear it. His apprentice did, a mutated, abused little dinosaur named Gunther. Gunther didn't want to stop the comet. His deepest wish was simply to be exactly like his master. But because Gunther was just a terrified kid, his perception of his master was twisted. He saw Evergreen as a crazy, screaming, cold-hearted old man who constantly yelled the name Gunther. So the crown basically recorded that twisted personality like a computer virus. Every single time Simon put that crown on his head, he wasn't just doing dark magic. His brain was being forcefully overridden by the thoughts of a traumatized dinosaur from millions of years ago. It's the exact reason Ice King has a long beard, uses ice magic, and calls all his penguin Gunther. Simon was literally fighting a losing battle against ancient corrupted magic inside his own mind. Act 3. The Father. As if losing Betty and his sanity wasn't bad enough, the world then literally ends. The Mushroom War happens, dropping nuclear bombs across the globe and turning the Earth into a radioactive wasteland. Simon is left wandering through the ruins of human civilization. That is, until he finds a little girl crying in the rubble, a young, half-demon vampire named Marceline. This is the exact point where the writing in Adventure Time reaches absolute genius levels, because the writers trap Simon in one of the most horrific paradoxes I've ever seen in fiction. To protect this little girl from the starving mutants wandering the wasteland, Simon has to use the magic of the crown. But here's the catch. Every single time he puts the crown on to save her life, the crown lowers his body temperature, turns his skin blue, and permanently deletes a piece of his real memory. He is literally sacrificing his own mind to keep her alive.
Marcy, look! I found chicken soup. You're gonna feel awesome in a moment.
I'm just glad you're okay.
Do you feel awesome?
Mm-hmm. I love you, Simon.
I love you.
He knows the crown is making him crazy. He knows he is forgetting who he is. And the guilt he feels about what Marceline has to witness is agonizing. Honestly, this whole storyline is basically a dark fantasy metaphor for dementia. Simon isn't dying physically, but his brain is decaying. The man that he was is being completely erased right in front of the person he loves. Eventually, Simon realizes that the crown is taking over for good. He knows that if he stays with Marceline, his insanity will eventually make him a danger to her. So in the ultimate act of love, he leaves her behind. Simon Petrikov dies in his own head, and the Ice King is born. Act 4, From the Eyes of Others. Fast forward hundreds of years to the main timeline of the show. Marceline is now an adult, and she has to live in a world where the man who saved her life, the man who was basically a father to her, is just this crazy old wizard. He doesn't remember saving her. She has to watch him act like a complete fool, knowing the brilliant, caring man he used to be is trapped somewhere deep inside that frozen head. But what about Betty? Well, that's the final nail in the coffin of this tragedy. Betty didn't just disappear forever. Through a time travel portal later in the series, Betty actually jumps forward in time to the land of Ooh. She sees what Simon has become, and she dedicates her entire existence to finding a cure for his madness. But the tragedy of the Ice King is infectious. In her desperate, obsessive attempts to save Simon, Betty slowly loses her own sanity. She dabbles in dark magic, she pushes away her friends, and eventually, she sacrifices her entire existence to fuse with Golb, the literal cosmic entity of chaos, just to keep Simon safe. She lost her humanity trying to save a man who, for hundreds of years, didn't even remember her name. When you have all this context, you can never look at Adventure Time the same way again. When you go back and watch Season 1, you aren't watching Finn and Jake heroically beat up a generic bad guy. You are watching them beat up a mentally ill, 1,000-year-old man who is suffering from magical dementia. A man who sacrificed everything he was to save a little girl. And the reason he is constantly building ice castles and aggressively kidnapping princesses? It's because his broken, rotting brain is desperately trying to fill the void left by Betty. His conscious mind forgot who she was centuries ago, but his subconscious still remembers that he is supposed to be looking for his princess. He is searching for a love he can't even comprehend anymore. It is incredibly dark, profoundly sad, and easily the most tragic character arc hidden inside what was supposed to be a colorful cartoon.